Fit for a Better World, this is it. It is a roadmap published this month by MPI that sets out our activity the government considers will accelerate productivity, sustainability and inclusiveness in the primary sector and deliver more value for all New Zealanders. Very worthy. With me in the studio to discuss the roadmap and its impact on the agri sector, I have Tim Danjan, beef farmer from Muriwai, Gordon Vernon, beef and sheep farmer from the Waikato, and Doug Baldwin, retired last year, 81-year-old farmer and indeed a founding member of the Fieldays. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me in the studio. And before we have a chat, let's just take a very quick look at an overview on the Fit for a Better World.
What we do, day in and day out, is not easy. And a lot of us have felt singled out. To be honest, it's felt a bit unfair. But curiously, all the talk is a sign of something we need to take notice of. In a good way. A changing world. A world that we, the farmers, growers, fishers, makers and crafters of Aotearoa New Zealand can prosper in together, instead of each of us trying to go it alone. Now we have a plan that within a generation will get us fit for a better world, to help us focus on the world's most discerning consumers, providing them with the outstanding, ethically produced food, drinks and natural fibres that we grow, make, catch and craft. We have a way, the Māori concept of taiao. It's all about forging a deep relationship with the natural world. As Kiwis, we absolutely get this, but we can do better. Putting the climate, land, water and living systems first is in our nature. Taiao will guide and connect us to regenerate, be outstanding and celebrate our New Zealandness in everything we do. We have a future, an enriched future, where we will own our part and lead the change for our country, our collective prosperity, and for our children. All of us, farmers, growers, fishers, makers and crafters, will need to get involved to encourage others to step up and win the world over like we have done many, many times before. Making this happen starts with a commitment that you and the person beside you and the person beside them can own this together. You can shape this. We can shape this by thinking about how you can apply taiao to what you do.
It's time to work together
and change your world.
Our world.
Let's make it our business
to shape our future.
Fit for a better world.
It starts now.
Gordon, I'll start with you. You've had time to digest this document over the last 12 hours or so. What does taiao mean to you?
Well, it's respecting nature, air, water, and producing food for better health, better body, better mind and better soul.
Which is very worthy and a beautiful catchphrase. Yeah. But what does it actually mean to you?
Well, I think it's something that we've got to do. We've been doing the same thing year after year after year. This is something that puts it in a different perspective and a different way of doing something. So respecting the earth and its soil produces better food and better people for healthier people. That's what it is.
Doug, how about you? You've been farming for, since farming began. What's it mean to you?
I guess it means an extension of what we've actually already been doing, and a lot of our fellow farmers around New Zealand, it's quite obvious that is exactly what the procedure that has been followed, and that we're hoping that a lot more will join us and end up with a much better place to live in.
Is it a big change in many ways towards your attitude to farming from when you started? Do you feel as if you've sort of come in a circle, or because you've seen a lot of change over the years?
Yeah, it's been interesting actually, because some of them have been really, really good changes, and some that you think, well, I think that was a waste. I don't believe that there's been a heck of a lot of change as far as philosophy went. It's just what we've been using and the ability we've got to interpret stuff that's coming out of research, and it will get a lot better if we do have more research funds and more research being done to take us back to the old days when we used to lead the world in research, and no longer.
Exactly. Tim, how about you? You're the young gun here on the panel. Another couple of decades of farming potentially ahead of you. What's it mean to you?
Yeah, I think it just sets out that vision for the future, really, for us as caregivers of the land, and it. I suppose it puts it into words. A lot of things, like Doug said, that we have been doing well in the past, but it sets out opportunity for room for improvement going forward as well.
Yeah. Does it make you think about the way you farm differently?
I suppose it puts it at the forefront of your decision-making process a little bit, for sure. So day to day, it's constantly in your mind, but that's a positive thing for us going forward because the vision is right. It's going to be a bit tricky to get everyone there along the way, but it's certainly heading in the right direction.
Well, I tell you what, people who have to share that vision and actually get people on board are the politicians behind it. So we're going to have a look to see what Damien O'Connor has to say about it.
I'm here at Mount Albert Grammar in the middle of Auckland. We've just launched with the Prime Minister Fit for a Better World to Taiao, our vision for a better future for everyone in the primary sector. We would have done it at the Field Days, but unfortunately this year we haven't been able to gather at Mystery Creek to share our knowledge, to share our passion and to share our technology. Online is as good as it gets these days in many areas, but I applaud what has happened for the Field Days organisation to keep going. It is important that next year, hopefully, when we can bring people in from around the world, when we can move more freely between our countries, that we can get people into New Zealand, I guess, to buy our products, to take on board our technology, so that we can truly be the best farmers for the world. Today, to Taiao and Fit for a Better World is about getting more value for everything that you do on farm, in processing and in market. That's our objective, and we hope with you we can ensure that the farmers of New Zealand are the best farmers for the world, and we'll share that knowledge in years to come in the real Field Days at Mystery Creek.
So the Minister of Agriculture, Damien O'Connor, who managed to position himself there, literally bridging the rural-urban divide, and one of the largest and nicest urban farms in Auckland at Mount Albert. They're great words, Gordon. What did you take from it? Did you understand it as a roadmap?
I think it is, and I think we've also got to continue on by telling a story. We can produce the produce and we can process into added value, but alongside that, we've got to tell the story, tell it where it came from, how it came from, especially in terms of grass-fed beef and all that sort of thing, you know. There's a story to be told, and if we can get the consumer to know where it comes from, then we're halfway there to getting the $44 billion that he wants out of the rural sector.
It is a lot of money to get out of the rural sector. Doug, how many times have you seen visions like this coming through over the years that you've been farming? You've probably seen quite a few studies, quite a few glossy documents.
Sure I have. I'd hate to have you'd have to have a big truck to put all the documents in, I think, in that time. Yeah, but what we're getting and what we're having is virtually more of the same. But as I said earlier, it's got to be with the thoughts of all of the things that can be done, which haven't been provided yet, I don't believe. And it is a case of, as Gordon said, it's the traceability that they want for overseas markets, and that is becoming increasingly popular and also more achievable. So I guess looking from that point of view, I'd be pretty comfortable that we are going to make progress in the farming scene.
So nice, you know, looking at those overseas markets and all of that, which is the kind of the end result of all of the things that you're doing at the moment. What are we doing right when it comes to the land and supporting communities at the moment, do you think, Tim? Because we often see the negative.
Yeah,
What's
absolutely.
The good?
Yeah, we're doing plenty of good, and I think we have for a long time. There's certainly room for improvement, though. That sort of tail 5% of farmers is getting dragged up slowly. And I think we're sort of starting to see that urban-rural divide close up again. I think COVID's actually been good for that. It's put a positive spotlight back on farming. And it has to continue to close as well, because we certainly need, top-class people coming towards the industry to be able to achieve a vision like this. And it's certainly it's important to tell the story to our own population first as well, and get them on board with the vision.
If there was a story to tell, if you could choose a story, what do you think it would be for something that is going very well at the moment? Because it's very easy to think of the negative stories, isn't it? But here we are.
Very easy, yeah.
You guys are deeply enmeshed in it.
Yeah.
If there was a good news story to sell, Gordon, what would it be?
I would probably have to say the endeavours we've employed and put into environmental issues. You know, if you go back 20 years ago, we didn't do anything. We were producers post-war, and we didn't have a care for the environment. But now the wake-up call is we've got to do something. And I think, you know, that's a success story. And we're not 100% there, but we're getting there slowly.
Doug, what's the biggest change that you've seen over those kind of, say, the last 20 or 30 years that you've looked and gone, that's a real success?
I think with all the new electronics and computerisation of functions and what have you, and I was just talking recently about exactly what you can see and what you can't see on your computer, especially in dairying, for instance, in particular, with everything, you know, from a cow with a limp that's being isolated by a machine somewhere, to automatic factory milkers and all that sort of thing. That it just goes on, and to sort of sort out one particular thing, it's pretty hard.
It is pretty hard. Look, we're talking about that sense of New Zealandness, I suppose, the New Zealand farming systems. You know, we're looking at them to say we want them to be the best in the world. Arguably, some of them already are. What do we do? How do we market that to the world, Tim?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's got to come from our people, though, I think, doesn't it? And we just have to showcase the story of the positive things that we are doing, and get it abroad.
And possibly even not so much abroad, even just simply abroad and out of the provinces into the towns and cities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just to help bridge that divide again. Yeah.
So we are some of the best farmers and innovators in the world. How does this strategy, Gordon, build on that?
I think we've got to look at the way we can do things better in terms of our produce. We've got to tell the story, as I said before. And I think we've got to find out exactly what the consumer wants and what the customer wants. And I think we've got to tailor our food production to them.
What do you think they want, the consumer? If I was to say to you,
well, I think
what do people want?
Well, I think they want good, high-quality food produced from good quality farmers who have got the passion and the desire and the belief in their product and where they come from.
It's a very nice statement. It sounds almost as if you could have perhaps written some of the clauses in this actual document. And we were talking about it earlier on, just in a very practical kind of notion. How do we break those statements down to say, you know, this is an actual example of what you think it is that people might want when they're buying a product?
Well, I suppose in some of the cases the people look at a label, but then they go a bit further by finding out where it actually comes from. It comes back to traceability and where it comes from and how it's been fed, how they've been looked after, and has it been fully drenched? I've read a book called The Soils from the States, and how much chemical they used to reduce the quality of the soils. I think we're getting to a stage now where we are looking at regenerative ag in terms of the soil or the quality of the soil, and that soil can produce so much. And I think that's where we lie. Healthy food, healthy mind, healthy body.
Says very great. Tim?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything Gordon said, really. It's just, I think the marketing is the biggest key to this, that promoting our story and getting our image that we largely already do across to our consumers.
Have you seen any great examples of that being done really well?
Yeah, well, you see it in lots of products, don't you? Like Silver Fern Farms beef products that they have. It's that value add that's where we're going to be able to make the biggest gains, isn't it? I think overall production is probably peaked or close to it. So we have to ensure that we are getting paid the most for our product abroad.
Did you ever think in your years of farming, when you sent all of that produce off the farm, that one day someone would be able to stand in a supermarket on the other side of the world, hold up their phone, scan a little code and watch it traced all the way back to your piece of land?
Yeah, well, never.
If it depended on my ability to read my phone, there's no show.
Do you, when you're shopping, what do you think about when you're going into a supermarket buying something?
Well, usually I do read the labels a lot to find out, what is actually in there and what the additives are, but that's health-wise stuff in any case. So, and you can do that pretty well these days. It's getting easier and easier all the time. But it's really looking at that, quality of stuff. I don't know that it would worry me or that I would need the details of, when it was born, how long it was on that farm and how long it was on that farm. But if the client wants that and we can do it, let's do it.
Let's do it indeed. Tim, when it comes to documents like this, as a young farmer, what do you see? Well, youngish, a young man. What do you see your role as when you see a document like this coming out? If someone says, how do you fit into it?
Yeah, well, I guess being at the start of my farming career, I suppose I can see the long-term benefits of making changes to our business now that will give us that longevity as a farming system, for sure. Yeah.
And Gordon, we often think that it's these young farmers coming through who are going to be all those innovators and those change makers. But in my experience, it's often men of your generation who have weathered many of these storms and seen all of these changes that are actually driving quite a lot of innovation around farming.
Yeah, we have, and I think that will continue because the next generation coming after us are the ones that are well connected with technology, and those are the guys that are going to put their vision in place in the future. I just want to go back, when Doug said about going into supermarkets and all that sort of idea. Well, it's the person that has the best presentation that hits on the consumer, and the best presented product the consumer will buy.
Yes, they will.
Yeah, if you haven't got the best presentation, you're going to fail. So the processor in the meat industry and in the dairy industry have got to be well prepared to do that and step up now, because if we don't, we're going to miss the boat.
And one of the things to add to that is the fact that the packaging's got to be improved.
Yeah.
Because every time you get your steak or your whatever, anything that's been partly processed at a supermarket, you pay for a bucket full of rubbish that you've got to get rid of. And we've got to improve that.
We have come a long way from simply wrapping something in a piece of newspaper, haven't we?
It was easy to get rid of, though.
It was easy to get rid of, but
Oh,
you could
yeah,
actually,
sure.
being bloody tight farmers, you would have dried that newspaper out and caught up on some other rural news, I would imagine.
You're dead right.
Absolutely
You're dead
right. But it's more than simply that, isn't it? Because that packaging, in a way, goes all the way back to people being able to go onto a camera or a website and have a look at your farm, Tim, and to see your farming practices.
Absolutely, yeah. That traceability is vital, I think, to be able to promote our image. Yeah.
And we see that there's the importance of that traceability, and there is a sort of a difference between the countries. If you look in the States, they look to shut down a lot of that traceability, their ag-gag laws and things like that, whereas some of the Europeans, I've seen some of their pork manufacturing facilities and things like that, 100% transparent, because their belief is that if you hide a single % of what it is that you do, that's enough to create or to tap the curiosity of people to go, well, what's happening there? What's it like, Tim, do you think, to be farming, in a way, under the microscope of the public?
Yeah, well, it's fine as long as we're proud of what we're doing, isn't it? And that's what this vision outlines, that we need to make sure that we're proud ourselves of what we're doing, not just for ourselves, like us as farmers, but for us as a nation as well, I think, because I think New Zealand gets a lot of its mana from our agriculture. And us being proud as top quality food producers.
Gordon?
Yeah, well, in the past we've made the odd mistake. We've learned from that mistake. Now we must grow. And I think the only way we're going to grow is by telling our story, as I said before, and having added value to our products that we can compete overseas. But in adding that, we've got to make sure we're dealing with the right countries who are going to pay for it.
Someone's got to pay for it at the end of the day, because
That's
none
right.
of these changes come cheaply, do they?
No, don't. And at the moment, with the way that the world is, we're going to be able to feed our own people here, but There's 35 million people that we can feed, but have they got the currency? Well, they've probably got the right currency, but can they afford it?
Absolutely.
That's a big thing.
Doug, how do you think farming today was shaped by those generations coming through with you? You've weathered a lot of storms, both literal storms and droughts. You've seen markets literally disappear overnight when, for example, when Britain decided that they would become part of the common market. So you've seen a lot of things. Do you think we've found ourselves in a good place now in 2020?
I don't think it's that good that we can rest on our laurels. I think that we've actually got to accept the fact that there's always going to be improvements, and when people stop challenging that, then you don't make progress. It's as simple as that. So, talking about the changes that have happened, it's all those marketing things that came out of the blue, the taxation changes, for instance, way back, and it was just about broke half the farming community in New Zealand. All those sort of things have had dramatic effects on the way things are farmed. At the time, they've been looked at as being, the end of the world, but in actual fact, the farming community and the research establishments have provided the wherewithal to climb out of that, over that hill, into the next valley, and away you go again.
It is that sort of the sun coming up the next day and you head over. Yeah. Tim, when you see documents like this coming out, we see a lot of people leaving the industry, young people, or not even leaving, perhaps worse in some ways, not coming into the industry.
Yeah.
How do you think a document like this helps, if you could put that in front of somebody?
I think it'll help immensely, actually. That vision has to be passed on to the community so that we can promote, like I said before, that we're proud of what we do, and it's just vital to get that new young blood coming towards us so that we can continue to grow.
Is it a complicated document, Gordon?
No, not really. It's not complicated. I think I think it's got the different languages through it that you can understand. But I think there's got to be some sort of incentive. At the moment, you can pick up that document and read it, but at the end of the day, the rural sector's got to have some sort of incentive, because at the moment you're going through all the compliance of environmental, sustainability, all these sort of things, which are a cost to the individual that is producing the product. Now, at the end of the day, if he's going to get XYZ dollars for his product, well, that's going to be fine. But if he doesn't, well, what is the point of doing it? So what I'm saying is that one's got to be incentive, two, it's got to be flexible on both sides, but also has to be simple and not complicated.
That's really the key, isn't it? Simple and not complicated. Yeah. And you would have seen, I'm sure, no shortage of studies come through over the years that you've had a read of and think, I don't really understand any of this. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. What do you think the best legacy that generation of farmers who have, your generation and yours, Doug, have left for young guys like Tim, young women? Is it a financial security? Is it a pathway into markets? Is it a list of things not to do again?
I think most probably it is a combination of all of those things. And I think that the important part is that we hopefully are creating an atmosphere of welcome to the younger generation that are looking for jobs, and particularly right now are seriously looking at jobs. We've seen an advance right through the universities and the Mount Albert farm, for instance, where agriculture is still being touched on in some respect or other, and there's going to be some highly educated young people coming through into the industry, which will help, and it'll continue that, and they'll find much better things to do. It's just a complicated moving field, as you might say.
It is a complicated moving field, and even the very notion of what being involved in farming has changed, isn't it, Gordon?
Yeah, it is.
You were talking earlier before we started around that succession planning, around having leased the farm out. There is no shortage of ways to get people into the sector, or indeed to get people out who feel as if they might want to take a break.
You've also got to realise that it's still a lot of individuals' passion and desire to either own a farm or go farming or work on a farm. The lifestyle is good to bring up a family. So for all those things considered, it's still a very, very good industry to belong to,
Tim, you've got probably a lot of young friends and things that you went to high school with, probably older friends as well. How many of them are getting into the sector? And those that that are, what's their motivation for doing it, particularly if they've not come from a rural background?
Yeah, I've got plenty of friends that are heading towards a sector that have got a an urban background, and I think they see opportunity. There's certainly plenty of career paths available these days, and it's something that farmers that take a lot of pride in, and so I think people can find fulfilment in it for sure.
What's the single biggest change you've made in the very short time? Well, you're multi-generational farmers. What's the biggest change you've made recently that you think, boy, that's really changed everything we're doing?
It's a tough one, Radar. Probably just putting the environmental stuff at the forefront of our decision-making process. It's in the past you used to have two options, A or B, and the environment wasn't really a factor in your decision. But now it's right at the forefront. So we're constantly conscious of what we do and the impact that it has around us. And so I think that change going forward puts us in good stead for the future.
Gordon, how about you? Single biggest change you think's...
I would probably have to say environment, because in the past I've just ignored it and just carried on with doing what we're doing. But now I think it's focused on that, and also I think, in my view, is technology has played a large part in what we do and what we achieve. And if I had a drone to shift my stock, it'd make life a hell of a lot easier.
You could do it from your beach house,
Yeah,
couldn't you? With your,
just about.
Get the grandkids with the PlayStation.
Yeah.
That'll change everything.
Well, it could. Yeah, and I think, we've just got to be aware that the technology is out there that we can use to venture our bloody where we are. So, yeah.
Doug, if you're a young fella starting again today, I'm going to give you another 60 years in farming, would you get back into it?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few things I might have done quite differently, but in general, and a lot of them would be at different times and things like that. You sort of look back and, getting involved with Fieldays, for instance, was one of the things that's most probably, in some respects, held me back for what I was going to do, because I turned down opportunities because I was so passionate about Fieldays. And, it's those sort of things that do get counted.
Yes, and I imagine, what are we, 52nd, 53rd year, something like that of Fieldays now, that you probably had not anticipated, a COVID. I mean, you obviously probably dealt with the bubonic plague when you were a young fella coming through.
Thanks.
Had to get that one in. Look, it's very, I'm not being ageist. But all of these little changes as well have absolutely made things very different.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no. And, and into the future, I think who can guess what's going to happen on the electronic side of it, and that, just the way that things are happening with, milk being tested as it comes out of the cow and into the vat and all those sort of things, which we never even dreamt about in those days. The
exactly.
biggest
in fact,
thing
when you've got, some of these fancy halter collars, and we spoke to Halter the other day, the fact that you'll know the cow is ill before the cow even feels unwell. So all of this technology, very, very quickly, what's the one thing that makes you get out of bed in the morning when it comes to farming? And documents like this?
Just a passion for it. Yeah, I just live for it and live and breathe it.
Gordon?
Passion, desire to achieve for the day.
Doug?
Just trying to sum up what's happened in the previous week.
That is 81 years of practical rural New Zealanders right there. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And this document is going to become available for people to read in the very near future. You've had a quick skim of it. Readable?
Oh, it is. It is readable.
We did comment on the fact it's a very glossy document, hard to read in bed. Yeah. Light shines off it. There'd be an app for that to help us with that.
But there's a message there, a really good message.
There is a message, and if you could sum it up, this is the last word, if you could sum up the message in there succinctly, as a farmer, what would it be?
Productivity, resilience and sustainability.
Brilliant. Look at that, 3 words. There's no fee attached to that. Need to work for MPI to get that. Thank you, gentlemen.